All right, so we're diving into this wild game report tonight. UConn squeaks out a win over Xavier. Overtime thriller. Big East opener. On the surface, looks like just another W for the Huskies, but
Yeah, but look closer and you realize it's anything but a typical win.
exactly. We're going to break down how they pulled it off, why it matters, and what it tells us about both these teams going forward.
UConn facing some serious adversity coming into this one, and they had to dig deep to pull out this victory.
All right, so first let's set the scene. Big East opener, always a little extra juice in those games, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this one, back and forth the entire way. Neither team led by more than 6 points in the second half.
Nail biter.
Uh-huh.
Down to the wire, fans on the edge of their seats. Must felt like a playoff atmosphere in that arena.
No doubt. And you could tell both teams wanted this one bad.
Okay, so before we get too deep into the weeds, let's talk about the stars of the show. For UConn, got to start with Tarris Jr. The guy was an absolute monster in the paint.
Double-double, 20 points, 13 rebounds. And some of those rebounds were huge GE, especially late in the game.
He was all over the boards. And those back-to-back buckets he hit in overtime. Chef's kiss. That's when I knew UConn was going to win.
Ice in his veins totally took over the game when it mattered most. You could just see it in his eyes. He was not going to be denied.
And he wasn't the only one stepping up for the Huskies. Alex Karaban, also with a huge game. 20 points, 7 of them in overtime. Clutch.
Clutch is right. Hit some really tough shots down the stretch. Big-time player making big-time plays.
And then you've got Solo Ball leading the Huskies and scoring with 22. Dude's a walk-in highlight reel, so smooth with the ball.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. Really creates problems for defenses with his speed and athleticism. Hard to stay in front of him.
Okay, so you've got this three-headed monster in Ball, Karaban, and Reed all having big games. But here's the thing. They win this game despite shooting terribly from three-point range, like really bad.
Yeah, I mean, 15 points worse than Xavier from beyond the arc. That's not a recipe for success, usually.
Especially when you consider they were also missing their starting center, Samson Johnson, out with a concussion.
Yeah.
So you figure, okay, they're going to struggle inside too.
But then you look at the box score and, damn, UConn dominates the paint, 50-28.
How do you explain that?
Well, gotta look the other side of the court. Xavier was missing their star player, Zach Freemantle, lower body injury, and his absence was huge GE.
So that's the key. Makes sense. Without Freemantle, Xavier just couldn't match UConn's physicality inside.
Exactly. And Reed, especially, just feasted on those smaller defenders.
So this is a classic example of a team overcoming adversity, right? Poor shooting, missing a key starter, but they find a way to grind out the win. Reminds me of that '04 UConn championship team. They were all about grit and defense, and that's what we saw here.
Well, hold on a second. Grit is great, but let's not get too carried away. UConn's three-point defense, that's a concern. They got lucky. Xavier went cold from deep in the second half. Imagine if they'd been hitting those shots.
Ooh, good point. Could have been a different story.
Yeah, they escaped with a win, but plenty of room for improvement.
Okay, fair enough. So UConn has some things to work on, even with the W. Let's shift gears to Xavier for a minute. This game report mentions they've got a brutal stretch ahead. 3 ranked opponents in a row.
Woof. That's rough. And now, on top of that, they got to deal with Freemantle being out again. This guy, remember, he missed all of last season, too. How do you bounce back from that?
Yeah, big question mark there. Talk about an uphill battle.
They need to figure out how to score inside consistently without Freemantle. Can they do it? I don't know.
All right, so we've gone deep on the X's and O's, but let's bring it back to our listeners for a sec. Think about this game in a broader context.
Yeah.
UConn's win, yeah, it wasn't pretty, but it was a testament to their ability to adapt.
Couldn't agree more. They faced a lot of challenges. Poor shooting, missing their starting center, tough opponent on the road, yet they found a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what can we learn from this? What's the takeaway? I think it's about more than just basketball. Think about the challenges you faced in your own lives. What did you learn from them? How did you adapt?
And here's something to chew on. UConn's style got them the win this time. But could it be a disadvantage come tournament time against the nation's elite? Reliance on the paint might not be sustainable when you're facing teams with more well-rounded offenses.
That's a great point. Something to think about for sure. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. How do you think UConn style will hold up as the season progresses? Drop us a line. We're always interested in your perspective.